Hi, welcome to part 2 of InDesign CC 2021, Classroom and Book, Chapter 6. This is part 2 of flowing text. When we dropped off, we just had finished styling some of this text. We added the drop caps, we added the subheads, and the no indent. So now we're going to go ahead and adjust some of these columns, because if you see, some of them they're not very even, especially if we added more information. They look just a little bit funky, so we're going to go ahead and play with how they're appearing on the page. So let's go ahead and go to page 4. So you can use your Pages panel for that. And if you notice right now, we've got text over top of our picture, which we don't necessarily want. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this with my selection tool and just come up to the bottom and just right before that half mark, bring it up. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other column as well. And you're going to notice that it looks really funky and it's not quite sitting right. We will go ahead and fix that later on. So let's go ahead and jump over to our layout. You can do next spread if you didn't want to scroll down, and let's do the same thing here and bring that page up just a little bit, maybe to about here or so. And we'll do the same for this one. All right, so we've got it going on to some extra pages, and that's okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is let's click the pasteboard, make sure we don't have anything selected, do a Control S and save. So now we're going to do something called using a baseline grid. So if you've ever used lined notebook paper, you know it's got those lines. It makes it really easy for you to make sure everything is even on the bottom. So we're going to create something on our page that creates that grid for us. So let's go to Layout, go to Page and 1. So Layout, go to Page, and let's jump to page 1. All right, and we're going to go ahead to our Type tool, and we want to click in this first paragraph, this peas grow well. And now there's one little difference that happens between our PCs and our Macs. So right before we do this, let's take a look at our properties, and we can see that our leading, which is our space between the lines, is set at 11. So we want our lines on our baseline grid to be set at 11 points. So now we need to go to Edit and Preferences. So if you're on a Mac, it's going to be under the InDesign symbol. If you're on a PC, it's under Edit, and we're going to come down to Preferences. And we want to do the grid. So grids. And we want to make sure that we start at 0 and that we start from the top of the page. That we want the increment to be 11 points, and our view threshold is 75%. We're going to say OK, and nothing's going to happen. That's okay, because we're not actually viewing it yet. So let's go to View. Let's come how to Show Baseline Grids. Under Grids and Guides, Show Baseline Grid. So now you're going to get that look of kind of that notebook paper. And you can kind of see that you're even for a while, then you're not. So we're going to play with it, make it work a little bit better. With our Type tool, we're still here. Let's do a Control A to select all. And let's go to our Type and then Paragraph. And right here at the bottom, in the bottom right-hand corner, you've got uneven columns and even columns. So we want the aligned baseline grid. And notice how it takes all the lines now and sits them on one of those lines, which makes it look a lot neater. All right, now you might not want to look at that anymore because it's kind of a lot. So let's go to View, Grids and Guides, and hide that baseline grid. And let's do a Control S and save. Now, for some people, they don't mind having hyphens. Some people really do mind having hyphens. So I'm going to show you how to turn that off right now. While we're still in the text, let's do Control A. And while you're in that paragraph, go ahead and click hyphenate as off. And that will go ahead and make all those words that are hyphenated unhyphenated. It's truly kind of a choice of your own, but sometimes it just looks a little weird. So I'm going to go to select all in here and don't hyphenate the quote. I'm not going to hyphenate this quote either. So When you can't find it, that's where it's at. And now we've created some overset text, so we will play with that here in a minute. Not quite yet, though. So our first thing we're going to do is we need to now update our styles because we've overridden our styles because we've told things like now we want it to be on the baseline grid. We've told it not to hyphenate. So when I go into my paragraph styles, if I do this little A+, it's going to say, okay, show me the places I've changed it. And you see all this bright blue that happens. This is how I can tell that you have overridden things and you're not using your styles correctly. So let's go ahead. If I click in this first paragraph, I know it has drop cap, but it says drop cap plus. And when I when I scroll over, it tells me, okay, these are the things that you did to change it. You change the hyphenation, you change the grid, you change the baseline. So we want to go ahead and tell it to redefine. So with drop cap plus, we want to click and say redefine style. And so now that will fix that. So we want to go through and fix all those styles that have that plus on them. So anywhere it's got a plus. So now we know this one doesn't have a style at all, and it says no paragraph style. So if it was something that you were doing for your publication, I would definitely say create that style so you've got that repeatable process going forward. We can tell that on the master, they decided to do something to this section and didn't make it its own style. So yeah, they definitely should have created a style for those elements. Let's go ahead and do a Control S and save what we've got so far. All right, now let's go ahead and while we're talking about styles, let's jump up to this Lemony Snicket one and create a style for our Lemony Snicket, shouldn't you be in school? So let's go ahead and say we want those quote authors to be italics, and maybe we want them to be maybe a different color. What are our fill color choices? Let's go ahead and make them bright green. All right, so now I need to create a new style. I'm going to click out. I'm going to click here. I'm going to hit Alt and hit my Create New Style. And I'm going to call it Quote Author. I want to apply it to the section and say OK. So now I've got one called Quote Author here. So now I've got that kind of funky green. And I can decide, hey, I hate funky green. Let's go into Edit the Quote Author and change that fill color to something else. So let's go ahead to our character color and let's make it bright red instead and say OK. So that's what's beautiful about styles is you can just change them on the fly. So now we know that we've got another quote down here, but we need to fix this. So we can double click it, make it bigger. We can see that they've got kind of an extra space here. So I'm going to grab my text tool, come in and do a delete and bring that down. And let's make this E.M. Forrester, where Angels Fear. Let's make it a quote author. So see how easy it is to create and bend that styling depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it. So we're also seeing that we've got some extra things going on. Maybe let's bring this down just a little bit. Maybe we can bring that text in off that other page. Let's see. We might, no, we're almost, we bounce onto it a little bit, but not too bad. All right, we're going to do a couple more things and then we'll be done with this one. So we've got this story. It does what we call a jump. So it's going to go from one page onto another. So we tell the reader where they can find the next page. Let's go ahead and grab our text tool, draw a box here, and let's go ahead and do P's, continued on, and then page. And now we want to insert a special character. So we go type, insert special character, markers, and we want to tell it to be on the next page because we know that's where it's going to go. And you're saying, but it's not doing anything. That's because this box has to actually be touching the text thread to tell people, to tell the story that that's where it's going next. So now we can go down here and let's draw another text box and do a, where'd my text box go? All right, P's continued from page. And we need to do our type, insert special character, marker, previous page. And because we're touching the box, it will automatically go through and tell us where that came from. So it's a really nice way to add kind of those jumps and make your stories a little bit easier, a little bit more user-friendly. I don't want direct selection, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this down so I can bring this in a little bit. Let's go up a little bit. So as you can see, there's quite a few different ways you can play with your formatting, make things look a little bit better. Here, clearly there's a typo, so we want to go in and fix that one. So always make sure we've got no errors, that it looks the way you like. Maybe you don't like P's on their own line, so I'm going to add a shift enter so it's not all by itself, being a little weird orphan. So I'm going to do a control S and save. Control minus, let's do a view, fit, spread, and window. And take a peek at what we ended up creating. So you can see with just a few plans, having those styles put in place, having just a few, letting the software do the work for you, you can really come up with some really nice layouts that don't make you do a lot of work. So we always want to make it do the work for us whenever possible. So I'm pretty happy with it, except just jumping that one line. So maybe what I'll do is cheat and I'll bring this up just a little bit on both columns. There we go. Maybe I'll bring this one down just a tiny bit. There we go. Now I'm not jumping onto this empty page. So what I could do is go into my pages here. Since it's empty, select that one, shift select that one, and throw those pages in the trash. And now I've got the end of my document. Control S and save. And now we need to package. So file, package. Go ahead and package it. We want to make sure that we are in our lesson 6. We want to make sure instead of folder, we write PKG so we know which one to zip and package. So hopefully you're getting a better feel of how InDesign is working, how to make it do what you want it to do. So let's go ahead and minimize this, come into our folder, grab our lessons. Let's look in our lesson 6. We should have this one that says PKG. PKG should have fonts, links, IDML, INDD, and a PDF. It does. We're good. Right click, send to compressed folder. And now it's ready to go. You can turn it into Canvas, and you have now completed Chapter 6. See you later. Bye-bye.